Hello and good morning. This is Kelsey from Kels Reads Things at Anna Porter Public Library in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And today, on this Monday morning, I am excited to be discussing with you Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, an adorable young adult graphic novel, LGBTQ themes, and it even won a Prince Award for Young Adult Excellence in Literature. So congratulations to Rosemary Valero O'Connell for this incredible, entertaining, and very thought-provoking graphic novel. In fact, I enjoyed this book so thoroughly that I actually finished it within one sitting. However, that's not super difficult to do with a graphic novel, but it does need to grip me pretty much immediately from page one, and this book certainly does that. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me is a young adult graphic novel, obviously, but its themes are really coming of age, self-love and self-worth, including recognizing what being a good friend is and what being a good friend is not, and also being able to understand and pinpoint toxic traits and toxic behaviors in a relationship that you're in, whether that be platonic or romantic. One thing that I loved about this book is all of the emotions and the illustrations are highlighted with one color outside of black and white, which is this vibrant bubblegum pink. It adds a very whimsical, soft element to the book, which is what I think the motive of the illustrator is, and the author. I believe that that's the purpose, especially to highlight just the soft moments in the book. Now that I've talked about the content of the book, now that I've talked about its bare bones and just a little bit of the aesthetics, I'd like to actually discuss what the plot is outside of the themes and everything else that highlights what I like about this book. So the plot is that Freddie is in love with a girl named Laura Dean. The only problem is Laura Dean keeps breaking up with her. It's been at least 2 or 3 times by the time the book opens, and unfortunately it's happening once again to Freddie. And Laura Dean is kind of like the LGBTQ version of an 80s bad boy. Only she is an 80s bad girl, and she is trouble from page 1, in my opinion. However, it isn't the relationship with Laura Dean that's just causing strife in Freddie's life. As she grows closer to Freddie, unfortunately, her relationships with her friends start to kind of deteriorate, and poor Freddie is left up to kind of decide whether she wants to continue to pursue her relationship with bad girl Laura Dean, or if she wants to restore the relationships that she's had throughout her life. Who will she choose? You can find out by reading Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Okay, so I've discussed the majority of the plot, I've discussed the themes, I've discussed aesthetically some things that I like about it, and now I'd just like to dive a little more into the things that I liked, including some technical things about the illustrations that I thought were really important. So first things first, this book was obviously very highly regarded. It won an award for excellence. I definitely believe it has a lot of messages in it that are important for young people to learn very early on, including what is healthy and what is not, including recognizing self-worth and self-love, recognizing what relationships you really should be fueling, which ones maybe you should be walking away from. And this is all, speculation from my point of view, but I'm just taking what I read from the book and I'm discussing what I think is important about it and what obviously I think reviewers thought was important about it as well. Some things that I think deserve to be highlighted. I thought it was really realistic, especially well depicted for the modern teenager, modern age. It was very much a contemporary book about LGBTQ kids in love. It was especially wholesome. I loved all of these characters. I especially loved Freddie and her relationship with Doodle. I thought it was very, very sweet and wholesome and just so beautiful. I loved seeing the relationship shape and change and ebb and flow. It was really great. Laura Dean was the absolute epitome of the worst, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I did not like Laura Dean whatsoever, which isn't really strange for me. I never typically like the bad guy, which is weird because in fantasy I kind of do, but just like in modern day contemporary books, I do not. Maybe it's just the extra magic element in fantasy books that makes bad boys more appealing. Maybe it's because they actually have something to back up their attitude. I don't really know. I just know contemporary bad boys I'm not really into, and it's never been my thing. And I've noticed I keep saying boy. I guess I could also say girl. Please excuse my language. It comes from the 90s when I was growing up. And probably an even earlier time period than that. So from this moment forward, I will say bad girl in respect to Laura Dean as a character. I thought that she was really selfish, aloof. She got aggressive unnecessarily, I think, and I'm sure a lot of that had to do with her background and the situation she was in at the time, but that wasn't really dived into. The focus was on Freddie and her relationships and her toxic, not so great relationship with Laura Dean. And I feel like that's okay to say because I feel like that's pretty obvious, even with the title, that this relationship isn't exactly something that is serving Freddie, and it is so liberating when she makes the decisions that she eventually makes. The illustrations were beautiful, expressive, very, very unique. I loved the diversity on the page. There were people who identified as LGBTQ, there were people who were of color, there were people, different ethnicities, I guess I should say. There were just so much diversity in one book, and it was beautiful to see in illustration format rather than in written word, because I think the characters were just so expressive, especially when coordinated with that light bubblegum pink. It was just added so much to the novel, especially in moments when the characters were happy. They were all in pink, as you can see. That was definitely a theme throughout the novel. The characters were drawn really well, especially in their body language, so there wasn't at all any confusion of what the characters were feeling, which I really appreciate in a graphic novel, because you don't have a lot of text to always convey what a character is feeling or going through, or even what they're expressing at the time. So having an illustrator that really pays attention to detail and that really knows how to draw characters and body language is always appreciative in graphic novels, and this author and illustrator did a wonderful job. In fact, I think I forgot to mention it was either the author or the illustrator. I'm so sorry. Mariko Tamaki. I know I've said this once, but I just want to highlight this. I think this graphic novel in this book is an excellent example to young people, whether they're middle grade or higher, or high school level, doesn't really matter. I think it's a great example of an example of a healthy relationship and examples of unhealthy relationships, and kind of what you should look out for yourself and certain feelings and how you should respond to those. What people give you certain feelings. Are they good? Are they negative? Why is that? Focus on that, and it'll help you figure out, the kind of people maybe that you should surround yourself by, and the kind of people that kind of make you feel down about yourself or who don't challenge you. I loved the messages about self-love and self-care and self-worthiness. You are worthy. Don't ever forget that. And one thing that I want to say that's just fun for me, Rainbow Rowell is one of my favorite authors. She wrote Fangirl, and I read it at the perfect time in my life, and she actually commented on this book and said that she wanted to break up with Laura Dean, and I just thought that that was hilarious because I love Rainbow Rowell, and that's honestly what inspired me more than anything to read this, and I'm so glad I finally did. All that being said, I of course gave this incredible, amazing graphic novel a 5-star rating. I finished it in one sitting. I thought it had a fantastic message. The illustrations were great. The story, the characters, everything about it was aesthetically pleasing and wholesome. The messages were extremely important, in case I haven't highlighted that enough. And again, it was just a really well written, diverse, modern, young adult graphic novel that highlighted some important issues. And P.S. I would want to break up with Laura Dean too. Thank you so much for watching and reviewing with me today. I'm very happy to announce that I am still kind of trudging along with the books that I'm currently reading, including The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I finally started Finlay Donovan is Killing It, because I wanted to take a little bit of break from some fantasy reading. I love Cassandra Clare, I really do, but I need just a little bit of a palate cleanser. So I am taking a step back from reading the Clockwork series and from reading the City series. I know that's not what they're actually called. So I'm taking a step back from fantasy reading for just maybe a week or two, and then I'm gonna obviously get back into it so that I can finally finish these series out and move on to other more witchy themed reads for this fall. So I look forward to reading those and discussing them with you at a later time this year. I'm still also listening to the audiobook Hang the Moon. However, I am very close to finishing, and I very much look forward to discussing it with you at a later time. Thank you again for viewing today and for subscribing. Thank you again to all who support me, and I look forward to discussing more books with you in the future. Have a wonderful Monday.